Chairman Mike Turner helms the Intelligence Committee in the House of Representatives. He hails from Dayton. He's a Buckeye. Congressman, good morning. Welcome back. Great to have you.
Good morning, Hugh. Thanks for having me.
Now, no one from Ohio joined the Knucklehead Caucus yesterday. Crane, Buck, Biggs, Rosendale, Gates, Good, Mace, Burchett, and then Norman and Bishop are honorary members because they got the ball rolling. What happens in the House caucus? Now, I wanted to talk to you about Intel, and we'll get to that, but what happens next?
Sure. Well, there certainly is chaos on Capitol Hill, Hugh. And as you know, Kevin McCarthy was basically removed because he refused to shut down the government. And those who wanted the government shut down, which would have accomplished nothing, have now instead shut down the House of Representatives. So we're on pause now as the House looks to the successor for Kevin. And we certainly have some great talent. Steve Scalise, obviously, is number two, is the natural successor. Jim Jordan has shown tremendous amount of leadership. Both of them would do an excellent job. But I tell you, Hugh, if we're going to be able to move forward and get past this disruption, we're going to have to change the rules of the House so that no one can do this again. The rules previously, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, would not have permitted this. We had started to change the rules to make certain that we could function. If we're going to pick a leader for our team, we need to act like a team. And one person should, and a group of 10 joining together, should not be able to take them down.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I am curious if you think it is possible for Speaker Pro Tem McHenry to put together an 18-month spending plan, bring it up with the 90% of the caucus that are normal conservative Republicans, get a few Democrats to sign on because they get a couple of things that they want, and then send it over to the Senate. Because this is a dysfunctional House with these 10 people, and it's not going to get better. Do you think that's possible to do it that way?
Well, my understanding, and I certainly have talked to Patrick McHenry, and he is certainly, it's great to have him in this position at this point because he'll be stable and he's also a great leader, highly substantive. But according to the rules, he only has the authority to be able to convene the House for the purposes of electing a speaker and a few other administrative items. So those types of big policy issues, I think, would evade him. But Hugh, you're absolutely right. We've got to govern, and people can't just sit on the sidelines and expect that we're going to be able to get anything done.
Will any of the 10 be in any way punished? Newt Gingrich watched them all exiled and primaried. I have no idea what the authority of the caucus is other than to change their office. I'd put Matt Gaetz in the basement if you have a basement. But what can the caucus do?
Well, there's no question that these individuals have changed their relationship with the rest of the caucus. And, I think our first number one job is to get a speaker elected. And then, after that, we need to have a discussion as to what our rules should be so that this doesn't happen again. And then I think, obviously, an analysis of, how was it that this was allowed to happen and make certain that as a team we stay together and corporately this isn't allowed to happen again.
All right. Well, let me go over to the writ that you have, which is House Intel. I just talked with Governor DeSantis about his campaign, and I asked him the grand strategy if he's the president. And of course, it begins with China. Do you think that the Russia-China alliance is breakable easily in the way that some members of the Republican would-be presidential campaigns are saying?
Well, I don't know that it's breakable or even needs to be totally broken, but it certainly needs to be diminished. And then the process for that starts with Ukraine and making certain that Russia is not successful. As Russia undertakes its aggression and its ruthless murdering of Ukrainians, China needs to see Russia not be successful there. One, that the world's democracies will stand against authoritarianism, but also, two, that Russia as a potential ally is weak and it doesn't have a great ability to execute as a partner to China.
Now, Chairman, someone who's very wired told me yesterday that support for Ukraine is now a minority position in polling of Republicans. I'm kind of stunned by that because I've been around since a kid in the Reagan White House, and we always kind of supported anyone who was against Russia, even when it was the Soviet Union. Is that your sense that half the party is against funding Ukraine?
No, what I think it is, and this, we have to be cognizant of this. The Ukraine defense has been funded through a Democrat administration and through Nancy Pelosi's prior funding bills. and those are Democrat bills, which means they're loaded up. They have more money in them than they need, and they don't focus on the core function of defense. I think when you talk about a $40 billion bill passed by the House and signed by Biden that sends $12 billion to Ukraine, there's a lot in it that doesn't need to be in a package like that. I think if the American people had confidence that what was happening was actually funding of Ukraine, just of military operations to be able to keep them, to be able to hold back Russian aggression. I think the American people understand that that's in our national security interest. It's certainly, when you listen to Vladimir Putin, he says, I'm not stopping at Ukraine. But we have to stop him then in Ukraine. And I think the American public understand that.
He also would control 30% of the world's wheat if he actually wins that war. And that might be good for a few farmers in America, but I don't think they want that kind of a win because it will drive up the cost of bread for everybody in America, and it's already $6 a loaf.
Right, because Vladimir Putin, being an authoritarian leader, we've seen what he's done with energy, we've seen what he's done with natural gas. He uses the resources of his country as one of those weapons to propagate his authoritarian regime. And he certainly, just as he's threatened countries with losing natural gas, with not being able to access Russian oil, certainly he would do the same with food.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I want to talk to you about the Iran initiative. The Iranian mullahs got together 4 or 5 years ago, and they decided they would co-opt some Americans. And they succeeded. But some of those Americans ended up on Team Biden. Does the House Intel have that briefing yet, or are we still all working from just what's in the public domain?
I can only discuss what's in the public domain. I can tell you that we have to be very concerned about Iran's reach. Obviously, they're a self-declared adversary of the United States. I think this administration is spending way too much time negotiating with Iran and trying to placate Iran in their quest to try to get back into what's known as the JCPOA, the nuclear enrichment deal with Iran. Of course, we saw them paying billions of dollars for what were American hostages. I don't think this administration understands the real threat that Iran poses to the United States.
All right, so we can't go further than there. At least tell me that the director of the CIA and the director of national intelligence come before your committee, and they appear to have a grasp on the breadth and depth of CCP espionage in the United States. Do you think that is the case?
I can tell you that Director Burns and Director Avril Haines, Director of National Intelligence and Director of CIA, are excellent. They're doing an incredible job. Of people in the Biden administration, they are two that stand out, that are standing up for national security, are responsive to our committee. They're working daily on the issues and the threats that threaten our country, and certainly are working with us together.
So how do you describe that? I try and explain to people, we used to do KGB novels, and everyone kind of knew about Soviet Boris Badenov and all that kind of. I don't think anyone has any idea what the Chi-Coms are up to, Mr. Chairman. Do you?
I think we certainly have a grasp. Your intelligence committee currently is working diligently, and I think is doing an excellent job at trying to ferret out the threats to our country and make certain people have the information that they need and counter those national security threats. I do think the Biden administration is slow on the uptake on all of that. I mean, it's amazing to see the threats that the intelligence community identifies that the Biden administration has no policy and undertakes nothing. And then, of course, if the administration's slow, they certainly aren't communicating those to the American public and letting the public know what threats are there. So I do think that the buck stops there. I think the Biden administration is certainly accepting a threat level that is very, very dangerous.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. Director Wray is going to be replaced by any Republican who wins. I understand that. In the meantime, is the counterintelligence division at the Bureau, with whom I used to work long ago and far away, and they were good at what they did, are they still functioning even as the Bureau kind of gets buffeted by politicization at the top level?
Yes, I believe so. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Director Wray and the FBI, there are a number of real issues and real reforms that need to occur to the FBI. But I think on the counterintelligence side, on the national security side, the FBI is a working team with the intelligence community.
Do they come over and brief you? I mean, does Wray actually sit down with you in closed session? Because he's not very communicative in open session.
Yes, he's been to our committee, and I speak to him on a regular basis.
I appreciate that. Very last political question. Have you talked to Jim Jordan yet? Because I don't know that Jim Jordan wants to take the arrows in the back that come with being Speaker. He's very good at judiciary. Do you know if he wants to be Speaker?
I do not. I spoke to both Jim and Steve Scalise last night as we were all leaving the Capitol. Privately had opportunity to speak with them. I know that either one of them have great talent, and we got a good bench. So I do believe that whoever becomes our next Speaker is going to be able to lead this House, as long as we change the rules and give them the power that they need, so that we don't have, again, this Donnybrook of a handful of people taking down the entire House of Representatives.
Are there any of them repentant? Are any of the 10 saying to anyone, "Oh, I screwed up, I'm sorry"?
Absolutely not. And two things here. One, Kevin McCarthy was doing a great job as Speaker. He was delivering for the American public. He was making certain that he was negotiating hard bargains with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president. He was making that difference of a Republican leading the House. The second thing is unfortunately, in the environment that we're in, the more attention that some of these individuals get, the more they're emboldened. And this certainly was a very circus spectacle that feeds right into that.
I just got to tell you, Mr. Chair, I've been doing this longer than you. I mean, I've been at this a long time. I've never seen the Republicans act this stupid before. So, yeah, good luck in rebuilding. I don't know who's going to take this job. Thank you, sir. Chairman of the House Intel Committee, Mike Turner, great man, great former mayor of Dayton, just a good guy, smart guy.